الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. So tonight inshallah we'll start with الدرس السادس من الدروس المهمة لعامة الأمة للشيخ بن باز رحمه الله. And this section here starts the section of another science from the different sciences, or from the different types of knowledge, the different categories of ilm. And the first that he mentioned in the book was, he went through ilm al-tafsir, and he started with some tafsir, the short surah, and then he went to basically ilm al-aqidah, ma'na shahadatain, the meaning of the shahada, the conditions of the shahada, the arkan al-islam, the arkan al-iman, ilm al-aqidah. And then in this section he moves on to the next knowledge, ilm al-fiqh. So firstly, we got to know what fiqh is before we can go into any detail about the knowledge itself. Does anybody know what fiqh? Fiqh. What is fiqh? Because fiqh is not aqidah. We're not talking about now how a person believes in Allah. How a person believes in Allah, the belief in Allah is in the chapter of the Bab al-Aqidah, ilm al-Aqidah, the belief system of the Muslims. So now we're talking about al-fiqh. And for every science they give a definition. The ulama give a specific definition so that basically everybody is on the same page. Sometimes we can think we're talking about the same thing, and what I intend is one thing, or what you intend is one thing, and the person that you're talking to might intend something else. So the ulama, they give definitions to ensure that everybody is talking about the same thing, and they call it mani'un jami'un, that the definition is all-inclusive. It includes everything that you want to talk about, and it excludes whatever you're not talking about. And they do this for a lot of terms in different chapters of knowledge. So this al-fiqh is basically to keep it on the level of this book, and we're not going to go into too much detail, because in this chapter now there's a lot of difference, a lot of ikhtilaf, a lot of difference of opinion amongst the scholars in the bab of fiqh. So the definition that is given is al-ilm bil-ahkam al-shar'iyya al-amaliyya min adillatiha al-tafsiliyya bil-istidlal. That is having knowledge, fiqh, is having knowledge of the ahkam al-shar'iyya, the rulings, the Islamic rulings, which are, how many Islamic rulings? We probably know two famous ones, halal and haram, right? But having knowledge of all five, the halal, the haram, we say something is halal, or we say something is haram, something is either permissible or something is impermissible. Then we say something is sunnah or mustahab, something is either sunnah or recommended. Sometimes it says sunnah, which would be number 3, or mustahab, which would be number 3, something that is recommended, or it is makruh, something that is disliked. And the fifth one is something mubah, something that is allowable. It's not haram, it's not halal, it doesn't fall in any of the previous categories. It's called mubah, it's permissible. There's no reward attached to it, and there's no punishment attached to it. But basically, having knowledge of where does a statement or an action fall in regards to those 5 categories. Is it permissible? Is it halal? Is it impermissible? Is it haram? Is it recommended? Or is it sunnah? Or is it disliked? Is it makruh? Or is it just, we say, allowable? So having knowledge of those rulings, Ahkam al-shar'iyya al-amaliyya, and those rulings are attached to the af'al al-ibad, the actions of the servants, us, the people, the actions that we do. We're not talking about the belief system now. We're talking about our actions, from ibadah, from worship, business transactions, contracts, such as marriage and divorce contracts and stuff like that. All that comes under the chapter of al-fiqh. To the end of the definition. So this is, in this next chapter, falls under the knowledge of al-fiqh. This is al-fiqh, knowing what is halal, what is haram, what's permissible, what's not permissible, what is recommended to do, what's disliked to do, and what's just allowable to do. طيب. So, قال رحمه الله, Shaykh bin Baz, he says, الدرس السادس شروط الصلاة. He starts off with the conditions of the salat. The shurut al-salat, the conditions of the salat. وهي تسعة. There are 9 conditions or prerequisites. Before we can pray, there are 9 things we have to make sure that are in order before we start the salat. Any prayer. Before any prayer can be established, there are 9 things that have to be in order. Sometimes we might do them without thinking about them, but if a person doesn't know, then these things have to be in order. Al-Islam, al-Aql, al-Tamyiz, Raf' al-Hadith, وإزالة النجاسة وستر العورة ودخول الوقت واستقبال القبلة والنية. So he's going to go on. He says, first thing, Shaykh Abdul Razak Hafidahullah, Salatu hiya a'zamu arkan al-Islam ba'da shahadatain. That the salat, we know, is the most important pillar after the shahada. After the shahada, the most important pillar is the salat. And how do we know that? Based on the hadith of Mu'adh, when he sent Mu'adh to Yemen, and he told him to tell the people, that they have to sing while Allah and worship, if they obey you in that. He said, if they obey you in that, then tell them they have 5 prayers that have been made obligatory on them through the day and the night. So the second thing, the second most important, is the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. قال النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام, showing the importance of the salat. He said, أول ما يحاسب به العبد يوم القيامة من عمله صلاته. The first thing that a person will be held accountable for يوم القيامة is the salat. The first thing that a person will be held accountable for يوم القيامة from his actions is the salat. This is the first thing. Then the Prophet ﷺ said, فَإِن صَلُحَتْ فَقَدْ أَفْلَحْ وَأَنْجَحْ. So if his salat is correct, then he will be successful. He will be successful يوم القيامة. وَإِن فَسَدَتْ فَقَدْ خَابَ وَخَسِرْ. If his salat is incorrect, then he will be at a great loss يوم القيامة. As-salamu al-afiyah. And that hadith is in Abu Dawud with Tirmidhi and Nasa'i. So the salah has a serious position in al-Islam. طيب. So he started with the shurut al-salah. قدم رحمه الله الكلام على الشروط لأنها تسبق الصلاة. Why start with the conditions of the prayer? Because the conditions of the prayer are before the prayer even starts. Before we can even start the prayer, there's some things that have to be in order first. Therefore, he started first with the shurut, because we have pillars of the prayer, we have wajibat, things that are obligatory in the prayer, and then we have things that are sunnah in the prayer. But before we can even start the prayer, we have to make sure the conditions are in order, the shurut. He says, why تكون بين يديها تهوّنا لها واستعدادا. As these conditions are a form of preparation for the salat. And then after that he mentions the arkan. After he mentions the shurut, the conditions, the next chapter will be on the arkan, the pillars of the salat. And there's a difference between a rukn and a shart. A condition and a pillar, there's a difference. As the condition comes before, what we're talking about today comes before the salat. And the rukn is, a pillar is what? Before the salat or after the salat? After the salat. Khalas, after the salat is finished.
After the shurut.
After the shurut. Inside of the salat, we have what are called pillars. Pillars are part of the prayer. The condition is not part of the prayer. The prayer doesn't start until we make the takbir. Allahu Akbar. Takbir al-ihram. Then the prayer started. Before we can even stand and make the takbir, before we can even do that, we have things that we have to do first. And these are the shurut. This is what we're talking about today. And they're both very important. They can't be left off. Can't leave them off. Tayyib. So a shart. The ulama, as I said, they give a definition to make sure we're all clear on what we're talking about. So the definition for a condition, a shart. And the example might make it more clear. The example might clarify the actual definition. ما يلزم من عدمه العدم ولا يلزم من وجوده الوجود ولا عدم لذاته. That ما يلزم من عدمه العدم. Basically, if it's not there, then the thing doesn't exist. Let's use, for example, al-wudu. If a person doesn't have wudu, if they pray without wudu, then there's no salat, right? So adam al-wudu, no wudu equals no salat, period. Right? But if a person does have wudu, does it necessitate that they're praying? Huh? If a person has wudu, does it necessitate that they're standing making a salat? La. We just prayed Isha. For those who are still in wudu right now, the fact that the wudu is present, a person has wudu, doesn't necessitate that they're praying. And that's a shart. A shart is, if it's not there, if A is not there, then B can't exist. If A is not there, then B can't exist. If the wudu is not there, then the salah can't make the salah. And at the same time, A can be there and B doesn't have to, it doesn't necessitate that B is happening. A person can have wudu, but it doesn't necessarily necessitate that they're praying. You might leave out the house in the morning, make wudu, and you may not pray for 3 hours. Right? You might not pray till dhuhr if you don't pray Salat al-Duha. So this is a shart, a condition. Tayyib. And we won't go into too much because there's a lot of ikhtilaf. There's a lot of difference of opinion when you get into the issues of fiqh. Fiqh has a lot of difference of opinion, and it's not from the minhaj al-talab al-ilm, learning that. It's not from the way that a beginner learns that he delves and dives into a bunch of differences of opinion and different statements, and this one says this opinion. But you learn the basics as if you were teaching a new Muslim how to pray. And that's how the beginner books of fiqh are. Ibn Qudam rahimahullah has a book, Umdat al-Fiqh. Inshallah, after we finish this, inshallah, we're going to go through Umdat al-Fiqh. Inshallah. Where he wrote 4 books. The first book is a beginner level. It's basically telling you what to do and how to do it. Maybe he'll mention a hadith, not a hadith for every issue. Doesn't mention dalil for every issue. Not that he doesn't know the hadith, or not that there is no proof for what he's saying, but it's the beginner. The beginner has to understand the issue first. And then he wrote a second book for a higher level student, and a third book for a higher level student, and a fourth book for a higher level student. So you're supposed to start with the smaller, shorter books first that get straight to the point. They give a clear understanding of what's being spoke about, and then once that has been mastered, you move to the next level. So he says, Ash-Shart al-Awwal. Ash-Shart al-Awwal. The first condition, al-Islam. And these conditions, 4 things about them. We already mentioned a few of them. The condition is kharij al-amal. It's not part of the action. So the things that we're going to mention, that he's going to mention, rahimahullah, are not from the salat. They're not a part of the salat. They're kharij al-salat. They're before the salat. So first, the condition is kharij al-amal. Kharijun al-amal. Secondly, yastamir ila nihayat al-amal. These conditions have to stay. They have to be there in place until the action is finished. Right? They have to be there until the action is complete. So these conditions have to be present. They have to be implemented until the salat is finished. If one is taken away in the middle of the salat, then the salat is nullified, depending on the situation. طيب, a condition also, يُبْطِلُ الْعَمَلِ إِذَا تُرِكَ عَمْدًا. If a person intentionally does not do one of these conditions, then the salat is nullified. Intentionally, a person intentionally doesn't do one of these things, then the salat is nullified. And fourth, a person has to يجب الاتيان بها ولا يعذر فيها مع القدرة. That if a person has the ability to fulfill these conditions, they're not excused for not fulfilling them. There has to be a valid, solid excuse not to fulfill the condition in order for the salat to be accepted for leaving off one of these conditions. So the first thing, he says, al-Islam. The person has to be a Muslim. The person has to be a Muslim. وَذَلِكَ أَنَّ غَيْرُ الْمُسْلِمِ وَهُوَ الْكَافِرُ عَمَلُهُ بَاطِلٌ. As many of the ayats already mentioned, that those who make shirk with Allah, put partners with Allah, and those who disbelieve in Allah, that their actions are null and void. As Allah said, وَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِالْإِيمَانِ فَقَدْ حَبِطَ عَمَلُهُ. Whoever disbelieves in Allah Jalla wa Ala, then his actions have been nullified. وَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. So Al-Ma'idah, ayat number 5. And then the hereafter, they will be from the losers. طيب. And Allah said another ayat, وَلَقَدْ أُوحِيَ إِلَيْكَ وَإِلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكَ لَإِنْ أَشْرَكْتَ لَيَحْبَطَنَّ عَمَلُكَ وَلَتَكُنَّنَّ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. Allah said another ayat in Surah Al-Zumar, ayat 65. And we have revealed to you and those before you, meaning to the Prophet ﷺ and the prophets before him, that if you were to put partners with Allah, that we would nullify, that your deeds will be nullified and you will be from the losers. So, disbelief in Allah invalidates a person's prayer. So firstly, a person has to be Muslim. This is before they even stand to make the takbirah. Before they even stand to say Allahu Akbar, they have to be Muslim. After that, number 2, الشرط الثاني العقل وهو ضد الجنون. A person has to have their sanity. A person has to have their sanity. If a person is insane, the salat is not valid. The salat is not valid from a person who is, if we say crazy, or majnoon, a person who doesn't have their sanity. The salat is not valid from that person. As the pen, we say the pen is lifted from the crazy person, the one who's majnoon. The one who doesn't have their sanity, the pen is lifted. They're not mukallaf, they're not held responsible. They're not held responsible generally for their actions. طيب, as the Prophet ﷺ said, إنه قال رفع القلم عن ثلاثة وذكر منهم المجنون. As the Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith, that the pen has been lifted from 3 people. The pen has been lifted from 3 people, meaning those 3 people are not held accountable. They're not held responsible. They have an excuse. And from those 3 people, he mentioned al-majnoon, the person who loses their sanity. So, an insane person, the person who doesn't have their sanity, the salat is not valid. It's not accepted from him. It's not valid. Let's use the word valid. لا تصح. The third condition, الشرط الثالث, التمييز. التمييز. أن يكون مميزا. طيب. التمييز, we know what puberty is, right? Tamyiz is before puberty. Tamyiz is not puberty. Puberty is one thing. A tamyiz is something else. A tamyiz happens when the child reaches the age of 7. Taqreeban, generally. The child reaches the age of 7, then we say this child is mumayyiz. Mumayyiz at that point, based on the hadith that the Prophet ﷺ said, Muru abna'akum bis-salat li sab'in. That command your children to pray at the age of 7. And then he said, alayhi salatu wasalam, وَضْرِبُوهُمْ عَلَيْهَا لِعَشْرِ سِنِينَ. And hit them if they don't pray when they're 10 years of age. So, from this hadith, the age of 7, why command them at the age of 7? Scholars said because before the age of 7, they're not able to distinguish basically right from wrong to a certain extent. So they consider that age 7 the age of distinguishing. They're able to distinguish now. They're told to do something, they're able to carry out this 7 is one statement. Some could be a little more, could be a little after. But that's the general, based on the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. So, meaning, the child that is under 7, you can't have a child that's under 7 come and lead the Salat. Right? I like to do that sometimes in Ramadan. How has he memorized this, that, but he's 5 years old. You can't have people battling behind him. People that are of age, puberty, men, grown women and grown women behind who the Salat is wajib on, it's obligatory for them to pray. And you got somebody that's not even the Salat, la tasih minhu, it's not even valid from him. Because, why? He doesn't even have the ability to establish the intention. He never brings the intention, la yaqal an-niyya. And this is what they say. They say that the ghayr mumayyiz, the one under 7, he doesn't formulate in his brain or in his heart the intention to pray. He hasn't reached that level of growth. And the intention is from the conditions of the prayer. You have to have the intention for any act of worship. So if he can't do that, if he can't establish the intention, then he cannot lead the Salat. That doesn't mean we don't allow him to pray, or we don't encourage him to pray. But we're talking about leading a person like that. So, at-tamyiz, the age of distinction, which is different from the age of puberty. The age of puberty makes the Salat obligatory. The age of distinction, he can pray, and the Salat is valid if they pray. It's valid from him. Is it obligatory on him? It's still not obligatory. But it's valid. If an 8-year-old prays, the Salat is valid. If a 9-year-old prays, the Salat is valid. If a 7-year-old prays, according to the hadith, the Salat is valid. If a 6-year-old prays, la yaqal an-niyya. He doesn't have an intention in the first place. He doesn't even know how to formulate that. He hasn't reached that level, so they say that the Salat from him is not valid. So they say at-tamyiz is the third condition based on a hadith when the Prophet ﷺ said, command your children, abna'akum, and that includes, he said, وَيَشْمَلْ الْبَنِينَ وَالْبَنَاتِ, and that includes, that word, abna'akum, includes the boys and the girls, your sons and your daughters, bis-salat, when they are 7. So that is the age of at-tamyiz. It is not the age of bulugh, puberty. The age of puberty could be 10, could be 11, could be 12, could be 13. It varies. When the sign comes of puberty, then we know that that child is valid. طيب. الشرط الرابع. رفع الحدث. The removal of al-hadith. The removal of al-hadith. And al-hadith is a description. It's a description. وصف القائم بالبدن يمنع من الصلاة وغيرها. Al-hadith is a description. It's a description of a person. In this description, they fall under this description, and it prevents them from being able to pray. They can't pray when we describe them with this description, hadith. We usually ask the question, do you have wudu? We say yeah, or either yes or no. If you don't have wudu, then you fall under this description of being in the state of hadith. Right? And hadith is two types. Two types of hadith. Either al-hadith al-akbar, the major impurity, we'll say the major type of impurity, that a person can't pray. They can't pray until they make a full body bath, a ghusl. They need to make a ghusl before they can pray, if they're in hadith al-akbar. And this could happen for a woman, for example, when she has a menses. After a menses, she has to take a full body. She can't just come off her menses and make wudu and go pray. She has to make a ghusl. Or if a person, a man or a woman, has, we say, a wet dream, right? They have to make a full body ghusl. They can't just make wudu. Can't just make a istinja, make wudu and pray. They have to make the full ghusl. Or if a person is intimate with their wife, or the wife is intimate with their husband, all the way, then they have to make a ghusl, the full body bath, hadith al-akbar, the major impurity. So a person has to remove that before they can pray. This is before the takbirah. All this is before the takbirah to ihram, before a person stands to say Allahu Akbar. He has to make sure that if they fell into that type of hadith, that they need to make a ghusl, they have to make a ghusl. Or it could be that they fall into the other hadith, al-hadith al-asghar, the minor impurity, ritual impurity, which requires at least wudu. A wudu. الذي لا يرتفع إلا بالوضوء. The minor is needed. What is needed to remove that description of a person? He has to make wudu. We usually just ask the question, do you have wudu, yes or no? If a person doesn't have wudu, then they fall under the description of hadith. They're impure to a certain extent. How do they remove that impurity? One or two ways, depending. Is it the major impurity that they're in, or is it the minor impurity? If it's the major impurity, then they have to make a ghusl. If it's the minor impurity, then they can make wudu and remove that description from themselves. He says, وَقَدْ جَاءَ عَنْ نَبِيِّنَا عَلَيْهِ الصَّلَاةُ وَالسَّلَامُ أنه قال لا تقبل الصلاة بغير طهور. That, and this hadith is in Sahih Muslim, that the salat will not be accepted if a person is not in a state of purification. If a person is not in a state of purification. So this is before the salat. And that purification could either be the small one or the minor one. And there's another hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, لا صلاة لمن أحدث حتى يتوضأ. He said, and there's no salat for the one who breaks their wudu, we'll say. The one who invalidates their wudu, he can't pray. If he invalidates his wudu, or she invalidates her wudu, she can't pray until she makes another wudu. Until she makes, or he makes another wudu. And that hadith is in Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. Tayyib. So those are the first four. The first four conditions: al-Islam, al-Aql, a person has to be a Muslim, a person has to be sane. Shart al-Thalith, al-Tamyiz, they have to reach the age of 7 in order for the salat to be accepted, in order to be correct. And the fourth one, Raf al-Hadith, removing the impurities either with wudu or with al-ghusl. Either with wudu or with al-ghusl. Shart al-Khamis, Shart al-Khamisu, Izalat al-Najasa, removing anything that may be impure. And he says, أي من البقعة التي يصلى عليها, either from the place where the person is going to pray. Right? For example, if a person prays outside, maybe they're traveling, they're at work, and they have to pray outside. Tayyib. If you know a dog just urinated there, right? You don't go pray in the exact spot where the dog urinated and pray on top of the urine. I mean, nobody would do that anyway, but if you see it dried up and it's, if you have the ability, if there's nowhere else to pray, then you clean it. If you've got somewhere else to pray, then you should go somewhere else to pray. So even if it's on the place where the person's going to pray, that's number one. وَمِنَ الثِّيَابِ, or from a person's clothing. If it gets on his clothes, it's possible that some type of impurity could get on a person's clothes if they have animals, or it could be from human impurities. Some of the bathrooms, you go, a public restroom might be, something might get on your clothing. That has to be cleaned off before a person can pray. وَمِنَ الْبَدَنِ, or from a person's own body. And that's the importance of making istinja, of a person cleaning himself after using the bathroom. Because urine is najis, is impure. When a person uses the bathroom, whatever they do in the bathroom, say a 1 or a 2, both of them are impure, so they both have to be cleaned first. They have to be cleaned off before a person can pray. And the origin for that cleaning is with water. وَالْأَصْلُ فِي الطَّهَارَةِ هُوَ الْمَاءِ. The origin for that cleaning najasa, cleaning those impurities, is with water. So if some person saw something on the ground and they needed to pray there, they clean it with water. They pour water on it. وَإِنْ كَانَتْ فِي غَيْرِهَا, and if it's not on the ground, تُغْسَلُ حَتَّى تَطْهُرَ. If it's not on the ground, if it's on something else, then they clean that area until it is cleansed, until it is fully, that impurity is fully gone. And that's important when we go into those public bathrooms and stuff like that. You got to be careful to make sure that you don't get any urine on your clothing. طيب. That's the fifth condition. The sixth condition, satrul awra, covering the awra. A person has to cover their awra. You can't just pray in any type of clothing that you want to pray in. وَهِيَ مَا يَجِبُ تَغْطِيَتُهُ. And the awra is that part of the body that is obligatory to cover. And how do we know what it is? He says, وَيُسْتَحْيَا مِنْهُ. And people are shy to show those parts of the body. Allahumma musta'an. People are shy to show those parts of the body. The awra. طيب. قال الله جل وعلا يا بني آدم خذوا زينتكم إن كل مسجد. In Surah Al-A'raf, verse number 31. Surah Al-A'raf, verse number 31. Allah said, O Bani Adam, O children of Adam, خذوا زينتكم, which could be translated as take your, or adorn yourselves, عند كل مسجد, in every masjid. And the tafsir says, يعني, in every salat, to take your adornment and cover yourselves in every salat. In the sabab al-nuzul, the reason with this ayat was revealed, as Ibn al-Arabi mentioned in Ahkam al-Quran, that this ayat was revealed because during the time when the Quraysh used to make tawaf around the Kaaba, naked, with no clothes on. They would make tawaf around the Kaaba with no clothes on. So the ayat was revealed to adorn yourselves and cover yourselves. This ayat was revealed in the kulli masjid, and they say in the kulli salat. Tayyib, to cover yourself. He says, for this reason, وَلِهَذَا مَنْ صَلَّ وَهُوَ عَارٍ لَيْسَ عَلَيْهِ ثِيَابٍ فَصَلَاتُهُ بَاطِلَةٌ بِإِجْمَالِ أَهْلِ الْعِلْمِ. So the person who prays naked, with no clothes on, right? A person who prays with no clothes on, then his salat is invalid. His salat is invalid, and that is bi-ijma' ahl al-ilm, but with consensus of the scholars. And this is for the one who does not have the ability. This is for the one who has the ability to cover himself. They have the ability to cover themselves, and they don't cover themselves, and they pray naked, no clothes, salat is invalid. Batina. It's a different issue if a person is, as they mentioned in the more detailed books, maybe a person is in jail, and the jail strips them of their clothing, put them in solitary confinement, they put them in all these conditions, and they don't have any clothing, they can't get any clothing. That's a different situation. We're talking about the person who has the ability to cover themselves, and they don't cover themselves, and they pray without any clothes. The salat is invalid. Tayyib. Then he brings a hadith. لا يقبل الله صلاة حائد إلا بخمار. And this hadith is recorded by Imam Ahmed wa Abu Dawud wa Tirmidhi. And Aisha radiallahu anha wa sahahahu al-Albani. Rahimahullah. Shaykh al-Albani said the hadith is sahih. That the Prophet ﷺ said that the salat of a menstruating woman is not accepted except if she has on a khimar. She has a khimar. And the issue of the awra of the woman, different statements on the awra of the woman. We talk about the awra. What does a woman have to cover in the salat? He says, وَالْمَرْأَةُ تُغَطِّي بَدْنَهَا كُلَّهَا فِي الصَّلَاةِ إِلَّا وَجْهَهَا. That the woman is to cover in the salat. When a woman prays, she is to cover her entire body except the face. Her entire body except for the face, her awra. He says, وَإِذَا كَانَتْ بِحَضْرَةِ الرِّجَالٍ أَجَانِبٍ فَإِنَّهُ حَتَّى الْوَجْهُ يُغَطَّى. He says, and if there are men in the area that are not from her relatives, not from her maharam, right? Then, and even in that case, then she even covers her face in the salat. And this here is the issue of the niqab. مسألة النقاب. It says للأدلة كثيرة على وجوب تغطية المرأة وجهها إذا كانت بحضرة الرجال الأجانب. He says for the many proofs and evidences that show that a woman must cover her face if there are, we'll say, foreign men in the around her. In her presence, they're not men that she is able to marry, or they are able to marry her. In that case, and this is the issue of the niqab, which has ikhtilaf, ulama differ, if the niqab is wajib or not. It is not one statement from the ulama of the sunnah. The scholars of the sunnah differ on the obligation of the niqab. And Shaykh al-Albani, rahimahullah, he had a book that was so strong. His book was so strong on the issue of the niqab, rahimahullah. He said the book, the niqab is not wajib. The book was so strong, they banned it in Saudi. Banned the book. Don't even sell it here. Saudi, most of the scholars in Saudi end up saying that the niqab is wajib. Shaykh al-Albani wrote a book, saying it's not wajib. Saying that those that are Israel, he goes in his whole book. But the book was so strong, the way he presents his evidence and this stuff is strong. When you hear stuff a lot of times, you say, well, how do you argue? You can't really argue that. It's hard to argue that, the way he presents it. But the book was so strong that they banned it in the bookstores. Law, don't sell that book here. Allah yarhamuhu. Tayyib. So, but this here is in the salat they're talking about. What does a woman have to cover in the salat? Everything except the face, which means she has to cover what? Her hands and her body. Of course her body and her feet. Tayyib. We'll stop here. Some of the ulama say no, she doesn't have to cover her hands. Right? So there's another opinion that says no. She can show her face in the salat, her face can show, and her hands can show. Like most of our women, right? They pray in the house. When they pray in the house, they show their hands. Their hands, they don't wear gloves in the house. Right? They don't cover their hands, or maybe they have a prayer garment where the hands are under. There's another statement that say they can show the face, the hands, and the feet. We're talking about in the salat. In the salat. And this is al-fiqh. There's one opinion, two opinions, three opinions. This is the deal for this one, this is the deal for this one. All that's later. I just mentioned that just sometimes we see stuff that we don't know is foreign to us and we think it's, in total opposition to the sunnah. Or it's in total opposition to the scholars who teach the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And that's not always the case. Sometimes it's our lack of knowledge of knowing what the sunnah is. It's not always something that's crazy. Tayyib. So the sixth condition is to cover the awra, and the awra of the man is between the navel and the knees. Between the navel, the belly button, and the knees. And they say that both of them are not from the aura, meaning the belly button is not from the aura, and the knees are not from the aura. It doesn't mean that a person intentionally should go pray like that. But if a situation comes, right, anything can happen. The point is to know if this happens, what is a person to do? You don't sit around in the house, you have all your clothes in the house, you say, I'm just praying, no shirt on. Some of the scholars say, not. But if that situation were to happen, it mentioned the aura for the man is between the belly button and the knee. Tayyib. And that's extra. Let's show you how summarized the book is. He didn't mention all of that. About the woman's aura he mentioned, but he didn't mention the details. And the men's aura he didn't even mention. The more detailed books is mentioned exactly where, and why. Exactly where, and why. But this is basically to give, as they say, tasawwur. That a person gets an idea, they get a picture of the issue. Once they have a picture of the issue, now we can move to the next step of finding what's the ruling on the issue. If we know what the issue is, okay, what's the dalil for the issue? What's the wajh al-istidlal? How is that ayat al-dalil? Sometimes we might look at an ayat and say, how is that a dalil for this? Right? You might look at an ayat and say, this is the dalil for the ayat. What in that ayat shows you, where did you get that from that ayat? That's where usul al-fiqh comes in the fiqh, in the scholar of usul al-fiqh. Sometimes when we see an ayat translated, it might not bring the meaning unless it's clear. Sometimes it could be from the language. Sometimes it could be from the understanding of the tafsir. It's a lot of different factors that could show the dalil from the ayat or the hadith. So he didn't even mention all of that. Tayyib, ashart al-sabiru, the seventh condition that most of us know, dukhul al-waqt. It has to be time to pray. We can't pray fajr if it's not time for fajr. You can't just pray dhuhr whenever you want to pray dhuhr. It has to be time for that specific prayer. As Allah said, He said, قال تعالى, إن الصلاة كانت على المؤمنين كتابا موقوتا. That indeed the salawat, the prayers, have been established or fixed time. أي لها وقت معين لا تصلى قبله ولا تصلى بعده. Meaning the ayat, and that ayat is in Surah An-Nisa, ayat 103, meaning they have a specific time. The salat, each prayer has a specific time, and the salat, they are not to be prayed before that time and not after that time. They're not to be prayed before or after the time, but they are to be prayed in their specific times. And the best time to pray the salawat are in their earliest time, when they first come in. When the salat first comes in, awwal al-waqt is the best time to pray. He says, وَالْأَوْلَى أَن تُصَلَّى فِي أَوَّلِ الْوَقْتِ. The best thing to do is to pray when the salah first comes in its earliest time. Right? So for example, dhuhr comes in at 12, 10, 12:05, right? Asr comes in 2:30. So really, you got to pray between that time. Dhuhr is from that time. And Asr comes in, you delay the salah past its time. You're not allowed to delay the salah past its time. So if Asr is at 2:30, a person can pray at 2:15. It's not the best thing to do. The best thing is to pray in its earliest time. But a person has in the later time of the prayer. What they can't do is wait until the salah is going to exit, whereas though they don't have time to pray the salah in its time. For example, they're going to pray, and it's called waqt al-darura. That's a little later. But they wait till they don't even have enough time to finish the salah in its designated time. By the time they pray, it's going to be the next salah. You need a valid excuse to do something like that. To wait until the next prayer comes. The prayer is just about to come in, and now they go start to pray. Asr comes in at 2:30. They go to pray at 2:28. 2:29, you can't pray 4 rak'ah that fast, right? So you end up praying into the next salah. So it's better to pray in the earliest time, except in some situations. Tayyib. The next condition, ashart al-thamin. And we notice istiqbal al-qibla, that we have to face the Kaaba. We have to face the Kaaba. We don't just stand up and just, whatever way we want to pray, we pray. We face towards the Kaaba. وَهِيَ الْكَعْبَةُ بَيْتُ اللَّهِ. As Allah said, كما قال الله تعالى, فَوَلِّ وَجْهَكَ شَطْرَ الْمَسْجِدِ الْحَرَامِ. So turn your faces towards al-Masjid al-Haram, towards the Kaaba. That is in Surah Al-Baqarah, ayat number 144. To show that facing the Kaaba is obligatory. It's one of the conditions. If you're going to pray, you pray facing the Kaaba. And then another hadith that shows that is a condition. When the Prophet ﷺ said to the man, is translated, the man who prayed badly, that he had to keep telling him to go back and pray, and keep telling him to go back and pray. Right? They call it the man who prayed badly. لِلْمُسِيءِ صَلَاتَهُ. He didn't know how to pray. The Prophet ﷺ, he said to him, إِذَا قُمْتَ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ. If you stand for the salat, فَأَصْبِغَ الْوُضُوء. Perfect your wudu. ثُمَّ اسْتَقْبِلَ الْقِبْلَةِ. And then face the qibla. It's a command. فَأَصْبِغَ الْوُضُوء. Perfect your wudu. And then face the qibla, which shows that facing the qibla is from the conditions. Before a person can even make the takbir, you can't just say, especially now with phones, and a person has the ability to find the direction of the qibla. So the 8th condition is facing the qibla, the Kaaba. طيب, الشرط التاسع. The 9th conditions, النية. The person has to have the intention to pray. And the intention is established in the heart. The Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَا نَوَىٰ. That actions are by intentions, and every person will get what they intended. طيب, والمراد بالنية هنا أي التي يتميز بها العمل. So what distinguishes one action from another action? The intention. And he gives the example. He says, فَمَا الَّذِي يُمَيِّزُ صَلَاةَ الظُّهْرِ عَنْ صَلَاةَ الْعَصْرِ. What distinguishes Salat al-Dhuhr, which is 4 rak'ah, from Salat al-Asr, which is 4 rak'ah? The niyyah. If you're looking at a person, they come in the masjid, he could be praying Dhuhr. He could have missed, he could be traveling, right? Or he could have just missed the Salah, he could have just woke up. He comes in and he prays 4 rak'ah, right? He could be praying Dhuhr, or he could be praying Asr. It's for him, that person or that woman, that man or woman, is for them to make the intention in their heart of what salat that they are praying. It says, وَمَا الَّذِي يُمَيِّزُ صَلَاةَ الْفَرْضِ عَنْ صَلَاةَ النَّفْلِ. And what distinguishes a voluntary salat from an obligatory salat? As for Salat al-Fajr, we have two rak'ah before Fajr, and you have 2 rak'ah for Salat al-Fajr, and you have 2 rak'ah for entering the masjid. Right? If a person comes in and prays 2 rak'ah, you don't know, by looking, you don't know if they're praying Fajr, if they're praying their 2 sunnahs for Fajr, if they're praying 2 rak'ah for entering the masjid. You can't tell by looking because they're all 2 rak'ah. So it's for that person to make the distinction between which act of worship that they're doing. Are they praying the 2 rak'ah for Fajr that the Prophet ﷺ said are better than the dunya? He said the rak'at al-Fajr, khayr min ad-dunya wa kullu ma fiha, that the 2 rak'ahs for Fajr are better than the world, this world and everything in it. Are they praying those 2? Or are they praying 2 rak'ah for entering the masjid? It's based on and it's distinguished by the niyyah, whatever he has or she has in their hearts. So that was a shart al-tasi', the niyyah. So now he says there are 9. He says 9. Shurut al-salat wa hiya 9. Al-Islam was the first one. Al-aql, a person has to be sane, was the second one. The third one, at-tamyiz, they reach the age of distinction. That's the third one. The fourth one, that they had to remove the hadith, that description, that impure description, either with ghusl, if it's a major impurity, or with wudu, if it's a minor impurity. The fifth one, izalat al-najasa, they have to make sure that the area they're going to pray in is clean. It doesn't have any impure things like no, let's say, urine. People walk their dogs a lot, right? There's no dog urine there if they're outside. Also, their clothes have to be clean. Their clothes have to be clean, so they can't have any impurities, right? Like if they're changing the baby sometimes might go to the bathroom or there's a way to clean that. On their bodies itself, on a person's own body, if there are impurities, they have to clean the impurities off, like with istinja. Covering the aura, the part of the body that has to be covered, was number 6. For the woman, it said the face and the hand doesn't have to be covered in the salat. Some say the face, the hands, and the feet for the salat. The man between the navel and the knees. Number 7, dukhul al-waqt. It has to be time to pray. Can't pray before the time. You're not supposed to delay the prayer until the time is passed, inside of the prescribed time. Number 8, facing the qibla, istiqbal al-qibla. They have to pray towards the Kaaba in Mecca. And number 9, ashat al-tasi' an-niyya. A person has to have the intention to pray whatever salat they're praying. If it's obligatory, if it's a dhuhr, then they have the intention, and the intention is established in the heart. Some books, you might find a book that says Shurut al-Salat Sitta, 6. He says 9. Some say 6. Right? These first 3, Islam, right? That a person is a Muslim, that a person is sane, and that a person has reached the age of 7, age of distinction. Some of them don't mention these first 3, so they make them 6. Why don't they mention the first 3? They say there's no need to mention the first 3, because those first 3 are conditions for all worship, not just for the salah. All worship, you have to be, in order for the, you have to be Muslim. You have to accept Islam for it to be accepted. You have to be sane. The pen is lifted from the person who loses their sanity, right? And they have to be the age of distinction. So some of them say there's no need to mention them as those first 3, which are conditions for sihha, to make it correct. Those first 3 are conditions for other acts of ibadah also, not just for the salat. So some of them just say the shurut of salat are 6. They're not negating that first 3, but they just don't mention them because they say there's no need to mention them. We already know that. All worship has to have those conditions filled. Tayyib. We'll stop there, inshallah, till next week. Ad-Dars al-Sabi'u, Arkan al-Salat. The pillars of the salat, and the pillars of the salat are a little different than the conditions. The conditions are before we even stand and pray. Everything has to be in order, and sometimes, right, we might do it without thinking, but all of those things have to be in order, as a condition cannot be left off. And we'll do the difference, the detailed difference between a condition and a pillar. There's a difference between a condition and a pillar. There's some things that are similar, but there's some things that are different. We'll stop there, inshallah. Sallallahu alaihi wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad.